Hello and welcome to Wiltshire. My name's Richard and I'm lucky enough to live in a village on the edge of the South Downs. Friends and family call this place, mostly lovingly, the Acreage, because it's a bungalow set in just over an acre of ground, most of which at present is down to lawns. They're quite complex with raised beds, retaining walls, veg patches, trees, quite a complex area to mow. When we took on the property, it needed quite a lot doing inside and out. And at this time of year, my ability and on occasions, frankly, my willingness to do that takes a knock because of the amount of time I have to spend mowing the lawns. So, both in the fields behind me and in the garden, mowing has been a subject of some interest over recent weeks. As it can take 2 hours to mow the lawns here from start to finish, I decided it was time to take the plunge and move to a robotic lawnmower. Until this point, I thought that the challenges at the acreage would just be too much for a robot lawnmower. Well, let me show you around and I'll show you what those challenges are and what it's going to have to face. Starting at the front of the premises, and I'm using some photos here that were taken earlier in the spring because there was less greenery and you could see more of what was where. So at the front we have a simple lawn which is around 22 meters deep by 25 meters wide, so just approaching 600 square meters. It does have one young flowering cherry, but other than that it's a fairly easy lawn. Across the gravel driveway, and yes, I know the gravel needs replacing, it's on the list, is a narrow strip which runs between myself and my neighbours. This is around 8 metres wide and again 25 metres long, so again around 150 square metres to cut there, and both border that difficult driveway. Moving to the rear of the bungalow, and this is the first of the terraced pieces of lawn. This is around 600 square meters, and as you can see there are some established trees on the right. There are also some fruit cages there and a large arching retaining wall running through the center. Same lawn, different angle. Here you can see that there's a veg bed to the top left, and under that trellised fencing there is some planting too, so enough things I'd like to avoid. In the far corner you get a sense of how high this lawn is compared to the other. It's currently cut, as are all of them so far, by an Einholt mower, and this is around 4 feet higher than the lawn below it. Undoubtedly the biggest challenge I face is at the very rear of the premises. This is where the garden drops down into the paddock, a drop of around 8 feet, getting steeper beyond the red line. Next year we plan to have a retaining wall built to allow access from the garden into the paddock for the mower, but the ramp to do that is going to be around 40 degrees. Into the paddock itself, and this is approaching 800 square meters, perhaps a little more. It's fairly rough at the moment, and for that reason it's cut by an Australian Massport mower. Clearly there's a lot to be done before we can get the mower into here, and it isn't going to be this year, but when buying the mower I need to consider this paddock in the longer term. This in fact is the area we're going to start trialling the Ambrogio, and this is the home area. So what's a home area? Well, the home area is where the charging station and the base is placed, and it's going to be around here. Let me walk you around this part of the garden in a bit more detail. Well, clearly since spring you can see that the hedge has blown and we have plenty of growth in that. Also, if you look at the grass, there's dandelions, there's the odd bits of weed. Don't worry, I'm not mowing bees, those are compost bins. And there's a small veg bed for some runner beans. You'll see there's a concrete base for the shed that butts out into the lawn a little, and you can see the grass has generally got some rough patches, some clumps, some hatching and thatching. Moving over to the corner where we could see the drop into the paddock before, you'll notice that that's quite an unforgiving drop. And here is a recently butchered marmalised hedge. It will recover, I promise. And in this corner of the mid-terraced lawn, we've got an established tree with some nasty root croppings there and some raised beds, some fruit nets. I'm going to avoid that area because I don't want to get the mower caught up into that. One area it can't avoid though, some more thatching, some more dead areas, this retaining wall. And here are some sunflowers that have been put in. It's going to be an interesting test to see whether it can cut that close without knocking over those that spent ages trying to grow in February. And then over into this far corner, an established Bramley tree, and maybe a means of getting between the two lawns there in that ramp, but that's for another day. The lawn itself, well, there are docks, there are patches of rough and uneven grass. There's an old pathway through there. You can see that it's not going to be winning any top lawn prizes anytime soon. I'm not going to do anything with this lawn now. I'm not going to feed it, and the only thing that is going to change on this lawn over the next few weeks is the choice of mower. The robotic mower I've chosen is the Ambrogio Nextline 4.0 Elite 4-wheel drive. I've just bought it with just under £4,000 of my own money from Mower Magic in Lincolnshire, who are the UK importers and distributors for Ambrogio robot mowers. So, after much research, why did I buy from Mower Magic and why did I choose this model? Well, Mower Magic, as I've said, they're the importer and distributor, and this is a relatively new brand to me and to the UK, I believe. So clearly they believe in their product. I was also impressed with their online store and website. It's exceptionally good, both in terms of quality and range, and not just in robot mowers. So they clearly know this space and they know their stuff. They also have a great video library of technical material that helped me narrow down what was a fairly daunting range of first robot mowers. In fact, I had been thinking of a Husqvarna mower, and I should stress that there is nothing at all wrong with Husqvarna mowers, but when I saw one of their head-to-head comparisons between this Ambrogio model and the equivalent Husqvarna, it made me think that for me, in this site, at this time, the Ambrogio was the better. So why? Well, the first thing you notice is that it's robust, it's sturdy, it doesn't have flimsy plastic, it's just got a very high build quality. Compared to other machines that I've seen rated for similar lawn sizes, it's sturdier and it's just a better quality build. There were a few other things I've mentioned: no flimsy plastic, also a really full width bumper bar. So this is what engages if you hit something to reverse the mower and change direction. Here it's a positive action. So, on other models I've noticed that these were sometimes smaller, sometimes less positive, and I wanted this type of positivity, so that was an attraction, as were the wheels. So the wheels on this machine, and it is 4-wheel drive, it has got a really well articulated front wheel and powerful rear wheels, so it's a powerful machine, more than I thought. But these wheels are wider than I had anticipated, and the tread is deeper. They're also air-filled, so you get a little bit more suspension as a consequence of that. If you want to know the technical specifications, go onto the importer's site and have a look. They've got the full technical videos. But in simple terms, I've got more wheel on the ground with this make and model than I would have with most others. If I've got more wheel on the ground, I've got more traction. More traction's a better grip, and that should convert into a better cut. So that was something that I found really attractive. The other thing is slopes. So the lawn I'm on at present is on a slight slope of about 8 to 9 degrees. Behind me into the field is a paddock. To get down into that paddock, there's a slope of 40 degrees. Behind the camera is an upper lawn, which is separated by a retaining wall. The slope to get to that is around 30 degrees. For many makes and models, that would just be too much. For Ambrogio, they say they can handle those types of slopes, and based on the powerfulness of the machine, I'm inclined to believe them. We'll see. But that was an attractive proposition, and whilst I don't need it to cut at that angle, I do need it to be able to navigate at that angle. So what else? Well, spiral mowing. When it's mowing on a grass lawn such as this, where the lawn is already pretty well cut, then it will just do a random mow. But were it to hit some taller patches, clumps of grass, then it will detect that that needs extra attention and start to mow in a spiral pattern. And the fact that I don't have to do anything about that, that it just automatically detects it and does it, was a real bonus. And that should mean that it gives more attention to the bits of the lawn that need more attention. And speaking of that, this also handles multiple mowing areas, which I was particularly keen to have. So I've got 5 lawn areas that I want to tackle, and they need to be mown to a schedule. So I want them to be able to do this one on one day, that one another, the one behind you on another day. And that needs multiple mowing areas. Not all manufacturers support that, and many that do only do 2 or 3. Ambrogio support up to 8. Now, I only need 5, but you can see that I've got more than I need. That gives me the flexibility to manage a mowing schedule that works with using the lawn in everyday settings. So that was really interesting to me too. Also, although he's not shown up here, there is a border collie that shares the house called Taz. And I liked the fact that Ambrogio do supply as additional items a tag collar. And that means that if your dog or cats come into close proximity to the mower, then the blades stop. So that was just a nice additional nice to have that made me think that Ambrogio had thought of how you would use this in the real world. Speaking of which, articulated body. If I just pick this, you'll see that there is movement around that axis too. That's really useful in a lawn like this one, where it's got the occasional bump, it's got some ant hills. In the paddock, it's a little rougher grass. That means that the machine can flex with that undulation a bit better, ground the blade slightly less, and hopefully that means it will handle some of the rougher ground that many mowers of this type would struggle. So for all of those reasons, I thought this was going to be the best buy for me. This isn't a manufacturer's garden, it isn't a supplier's garden, it's just my garden. I hope with this video and subsequent videos that you'll get some idea of how easy or not it is to integrate into a normal garden. Ambrogio do make models that don't require a perimeter wire, and those operate on a mix of GPS and artificial intelligence. This isn't one of those models, so the next job that I've got to do is to insert a perimeter wire around the cutting areas, and that's the next job. You see, I've done what we all do. You're so keen to get on, but we need to do some basics when this comes out of the box first, starting with power. I have ducted power that is going in to be run to the base station. At present, this extension cable and this connector are in a dry box. But how are you going to get your power to your base station? And that moves us onto the base station, shown here, and the bag at the front are some fixing points. How and where should you position that, and how are you going to fix it to the ground? And then please read the instruction book. If, like me, you're put off by 2 A5 half centimetre thick books, you needn't be. It's the same instructions in about 20 languages, and every second of time you spend reading that and planning before you start putting the cable down will be a real time saver in the long run. So please read the instruction book. Then prepare the area. Here I'm just taking out leaves and rubbish on any of the parts that are going to have the wire. This was a large overgrown hedge that had fallen into the garden, so that was cut back really severely so that I could get the mower to go through there and make most of the space. This is it afterwards. It will grow back in due course, honestly. I'm not going to go through that gap and go beyond those fruit cages because I just don't want to engage with that sort of stuff with the mower. It's too easy to get caught up in there. In subsequent videos, I'll show you how to go and wire around trees. There are a couple of methods that are particularly useful, but for this particular installation at this moment, we're not going to cover that. It's just going to handle it by normal bumpers. Here is the base station that I've installed. So why did I put it here? A few things to consider. The first is the ground in front of the station. This needs to be clear and flat and have no obstructions for at least 2 meters. That's because it uses that space to navigate when it comes back to the station. Behind the base is a little bit more generous. You only need 1 meter of space. And here you can see that I've got way more than that in both areas, so no problems there. So you start laying the wire from the base and the back of the unit in a clockwise direction around the area you want to enclose. I chose to peg my perimeter wire around the cutting area, but you could choose to dig it in with a half moon cutter up to about 5 centimeters. In either way, you come back to the base station and connect to complete the circuit. I've already installed this base station, as I said, and here you can see the green wire coming through the center. That's the returning wire going under the charging station and connecting at the back. And that green light is what you want to see, because that shows that you have a live circuit with no breaks. So in terms of laying the actual wire, it's fairly straightforward. At the moment, in my manual, the distance for my model is 30 centimeters from the edge. If in future that changes, go with what's in your manual, but here I'm pegging about a meter apart. As it happens, I've found a gap a little earlier than that meter here, and as you can see, if there is a dip in the ground, you need to put a peg in that so that the wire is kept at the lowest level across the ground. You also need to ensure that the wire is held taut, and that's the process that you need to undertake for the entirety of the circuit of the area to be enclosed. Main thing is the mower can't cut the wire if the wire is pinned to the ground. It just can't cut that low, but you need to use enough pegs. I use two types, both plastic, one with a double pronged head and one with a single pronged hook. I think it's down to personal preference. I slightly prefer the one on the left with the two prongs. There's a bit more flexibility with where you can use those. Looking elsewhere in the garden, you can see here that I've been laying this wire around 30 centimeters from an edge. This is on day one. You can see it's fairly prominent, and there are pegs there at around every 50 or 60 centimeters. As we progress a little bit, you'll see that there are some dips in this grass, and there the wire disappears because the pegs have been put into the bottom of those dips. So fairly prominent on day one. We'll come back and look at the same place after a couple of weeks and see how it's progressed. So you've got your charging station in place. The mower is positioned against it and it's charging, which is what that blue LED means. How do you get it configured? How do you build your mowing areas and tell it when you want to mow? Well, everything I'm going to show you can be done via an app, and I'll do some videos with more detail later. But I'm going to show you here what you do on the inbuilt LED screen. First, you get your main menu up. Not too clear at that view, so let me show you this way. Here are three options. On the far left, you have an instruction to return to the base station. In the middle, you can set the machine to mow for a configured period in a certain area. But we're going to go to the cog on the right, which is circled with the index finger, and that will take you in to set the mowing area. We have a couple of options from that menu. The cog and the mower lets you set the settings for the mower. The cog and the blade of grass lets you set the settings for the garden. And we're going to start there so that we can define the area that we want the machine to mow. So if I press on that, I can now define up to 8 mowing areas. Now I'm only going to define the first, but I will want to add to that as we progress and move on to other lawns. So here I'm going to be talking about area 1. I can now define it. Now in this example, you see that they've got a dimension of 6,000 meters. That means 6,000 square meters is the cutting area for this area that I'm looking to define. And you'll also see that it's got a distance of 375 meters. That means that it will travel 375 meters around the perimeter wire before it starts to come away and cut. But in which direction? Well, that's shown by the sign, the circle in the middle on the line below. And in this case, it's going to be traveling clockwise. I could set clockwise or anti-clockwise. Don't worry about the distance from the wire. I'll explain that later. And for economy mode, you can read about full details of economy mode in the instructions for the mower. I've decided I'm not going to use economy mode, so for all of mine, they're off. That's now defined area 1. And we'll now go back a level to the menu. So now we're going to start setting the mower. Having set the ground, let's press that button and get into the mower options. Firstly, a calendar. This is where you define the schedule for the mower to mow. This is quite complicated in some ways, and there's some tips and tricks. I will do a separate video to show you that in more detail, but this should get you started on your first mowing area. At the top, you'll see that we've got days Monday to Sunday, and you can define up to 4 mowing windows for each day. So If I start to configure Monday by pressing Monday, here I have T1 to T4 at the top. Those are the 4 mowing windows I can configure. You'll see here I've pressed T1 and that shows me that that mowing window runs between 9:15 and 10:45 a.m. I could tell it to mow A1 by pressing A1 or any other of those areas, or I could press this button, which is border cut, in which case it won't mow an area, but it will progress around the whole border and cut that. So back a level now. Here's where we look at how much leeway we give the robot when returning to the base station. So selecting that, you may see this as 0, min, mid, max, or you may see what we have here at the moment. What it's asking is, how much latitude will you give the mower, how much distance from the wire as it goes around the border to return to the station? Now, because I've got the Valley of Doom at the bottom of the garden, I don't want to give it any latitude. It's got to follow that wire closely. So I've set it to 0. You might choose a different option. So coming back, I'm now setting the rain monitor. What happens when the robot detects rain? Well, you have 3 options. So if I press on that button, I can set the rain monitor on, in which case when it rains, the mower will return to the base station and wait there until the next scheduled cutting window. I can turn it off, in which case it won't matter whether it's raining or not and the robot will just mow anyway. Or I can select delay, in which case if rain is detected, it will return to the mowing station and wait for a pre-configured period of time. So now, a ruler against a graphic of grass. I wonder, what could that be saying? Yep, this is where you set the mowing height of the robot. And this is a global height, so this isn't area specific, this is throughout. I have the option to adjust this via the number in the middle, which is the millimeter height of cut, using the up or down arrows, or I can reset pressing that circular dial. So if you've done all of that, you should be ready to do your first mow and cut. Now, this is a border cut and it's 3 weeks after, 3.5 weeks actually, after the mower was set up. All I'd ask you to do is just have a look at the grass as it's going around. To my mind, it's already looking greener and healthier. There is no thatch, there's no hatch. It's been a bit dry, so it is a little parched, but the docks have completely gone. There are a few dandelions there, but they're dying back. So altogether, I'm really pleased with the progress in the first few weeks. As we get up to these compost bins, just on the right corner, you'll notice there's a little clump. I am going to have to trim a few areas like that, maybe once a month. That's just because it's so tight on that corner that it doesn't quite get the last little bit. However, for me, that's a trade-off that I'm very happy to make, because otherwise I'd be spending between 2 and 5 hours cutting grass a week, depending on how quickly the stuff's growing. Managing those veg borders well, and as we turn the corner here and you'll see that we have the concrete base. Again, I've gone as close as I'm happy to go. It's a little higher than the lawn, but it's still managing well. And the dreaded Valley of Doom. The Valley of Doom is doing really well. This is why I have no tolerance away from the wire. So I've set this as just follow the wire, and it has no latitude off of that. Now, if I'd sent it to give it 25 centimeters latitude to the right, all would be well. But if it took that latitude to the left, it wouldn't be on the Valley of Doom, it would be down the Valley of Doom, and I don't want that. You'll notice just coming up here, there's a sort of a bald patch coming up. That's an area that was filled in and originally was twice that size. It's already starting to grass over and the mower's handling it really well. An aside, a little extra tip, as we turn this corner, there's a little shrub on the right hand side. It's called a Saskatoon berry. If you see one, buy one. They're lovely. They're like blueberries dipped in marzipan. Every day is a school day. So here's the marmalised hedge. It's already actually sprouting a week or so after I took this, so it is recovering. And those were the fruits cages that I told you I was not going to go past. Still not going by them, but you'll see how close it can get and how well it navigates that type of obstacle. Really, really pleased with this so far. Just coming into shot on the right, a pear tree with those sort of suckers at the roots. You'll see some canes in there around that. That's at the base of those suckers. I haven't put any wire around that tree, so those canes help at the moment to divert the mower until I've got in and cleared those suckers out. A comedy moment coming up. My broad bean bites the dust. Don't worry, it was at the end of its season anyway, so it took one of those out. It had fallen into the mowing area, so that's no harm done. However, 3.5 weeks after you saw those little small sunflower plants, they're now tall flowering sunflowers, and the machine has managed to go by those all, cutting right up to them without damaging a single one. So really pleased with the mow on this. And as I say, a little bit of strimming is going to be needed, but that's a trade-off I am certainly more than happy to make. So coming back into the base station, the two silver strips on the back of the mower are where the charge point connects. And you'll see now why you need that flat space in front of the charging point. It will go in, it will tap that gently, come back out, turn around automatically, and reverse itself into the charging point. I think that's really clever, and I could watch it for hours. I will show you immediately after it's done this how they've connected and that it's spot on. And also you'll see that there's a blue light on the top of the charge station to show it's already charging for next time. So I hope you can see from the quality of the grass that things have improved. I'm going to leave you with a shot of the lawn. If you've liked your visit to the acreage, then please come back in a couple of weeks' time when I'll look at how we can get this mower onto one of those higher lawns and how easy or not it is to do that. And look, there's the connection, spot on automatically, and it's charging. I hope you enjoyed your visit to the acreage. I hope we see you again. And for now, goodbye.